Welcome to the Psychosocial Safety Summit, coming to you in October in Brisbane, 2024. This year, I really wanted to do things differently and introduce you to the speakers and supporters in the lead up to the event, because you need to know these incredible people before you arrive. And if you haven't got your ticket yet, jump on the link below. And today, I'd really love to introduce you to Fiona Hogarth from Human Synergistics. Thank you so much for being involved in the summit this year, Fiona. I am really excited about your chat.
Thanks, Nicole. It's lovely to be involved.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and experience and what led you to Human Synergistics?
Oh, I can give you the long story. I'll give you the short story. So we'll go down the shorter version, really. So my initial career started in hospitality, in food and beverage, and I worked in that industry for about 15 years and then moved across into training capability roles across government, non-government, government-owned corporations, all those sorts of things. And very much so the story of my life is really a lot about people and working with people, especially in hospitality. But in my previous roles, I also had a lot to do with in human resources space, but particularly in organisational capability and development. And so implementing strategies, actions and activities to make the workplace better for people in terms of growth, development, or even just that environment, the work environment as such. And during the course of some of the work, I came across Human Synergistics and commenced doing stuff with them as a client because the organisation I was working in at the time were looking to improve their organisational culture, and then the flow-on impact out of that kicked into leadership, individual development and a range of diagnostics there. But also as part of that culture journey there, we did some work that I was slightly involved in around workplace health and safety as well, because that was a key element in the workplace at the time. So that's how I came to Human Synergistics. And so I've been working in and around our diagnostic tools for about 15 years. And I have been with Human Synergistics as an organisation for 7 years. So I work as a consultant for Human Synergistics, and that's means all sorts of things. So we'll work on individual level, individual coaching and debriefing around some of our diagnostics, doing work with teams in terms of improving team dynamics, and also a lot of work in organisations with their organisational culture and how to improve that. So measuring it and then creating and working with the organisations to develop actions and initiatives that move towards that. So they're sort of the main things, but outside of that, there's individual, we might create leadership development programs or workshops that help hone people's skills and ability. And then we also have another part of our business, that's the consulting part, but I also do work in terms of accrediting others in our diagnostic tools, which is what gives Human Synergistics its broad spread and range of practitioners across Australia, New Zealand and globally, but we're particularly focused Australia and New Zealand. So that's what I do.
Yeah. A lot. And your incredible background and experience will be so relevant at the summit. And I actually came across Human Synergistics, I think only 12 or 18 months ago.
Yep.
And your diagnostic tool blew me away.
Yep.
And I said, oh my God, you need to be involved in this year. But also, as we were talking about before we hit record, I believe, and so do you, that every organisation needs to include this and their leadership team as almost a 101 as they start, because it really helps you identify where you sit on the red, green, blue circumflex. And you want to just share a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, sure. So Human Synergistics, we work primarily in the space of leadership and organisational culture. And we have a range of diagnostic tools that measure those. And our tools measure thinking and behavioural styles in particular. And we use the same 12 styles that are mapped onto the circumflex, which is based on a whole heap of academic research and rigour from over 40, 50 years ago. It's been tried, tested, for many years, written up. So there's a lot of academic rigour sitting behind it, statistical validity and all those sorts of things. And the beauty of the circumflex is because it sits across all of our diagnostic tools, whether you measure your own individual thinking and behaviour and how you show up for others, which is our lifestyles inventory, and then how that, and then group, or then into the organisational culture and how that shows up in the blue constructive styles, red aggressive defensive or green passive defensive. The diagnostic is the same. So it creates a language that makes it easier for people to understand. And the beauty of that, so whether I start individually or I start organisationally, it's the same thing. The other piece that was really useful around our diagnostics is you might be, most organisations are working to build constructive cultures. So where people know what they're there to do, they get a sense of satisfaction for themselves, they grow and develop others and themselves, and they also work collaboratively and build friendly relationships. Who wouldn't want to work in that environment? Unfortunately, that's not always what happens, but that's the goal. So when we look across all of our diagnostics, the emphasis is about building those constructive styles. Doesn't mean you have to get rid of all the green and red, the ones that aren't so helpful, because there are elements of that that are helpful. And particularly when we think about the work in psychosocial and what your summit is about, highly regulated, right? And so there's some elements, there's some rules, and we've got to follow them. But if you overdo the rules, then they get in the way, and it prevents people from moving forward. So that's where elements of conventional or the green styles can be useful, but if they're too strong, they lose their impact in an effective way. Similarly, from time to time, you need people to take control, be in charge, point out the mistakes, those sorts of things, so that people can grow. But if you just focus on, I'm in control and I'll tell you what to do and how high to jump, or that's wrong, you need to fix it, that's not helpful either. So it's about how do all the styles play out and how do you build a constructive. That's basically the premise across all of our tools at an individual, group or organisational level.
Yeah, and it is pretty incredible and mind-blowing, but also simplistic when you understand it. It's I'm really excited to hear from you and for others to hear from you as well. But why did you join the company, and what do you love most about it?
Why did I join? It's a good question. I think I was an opportunity too good to pass up at the time. Absolutely, when you work in this sort of arena, you can add so much value to people and you can really make a difference. Because I had been involved with the tools and had seen it in action, which is one of the strengths that I brought to the organisation, is because I was an actual user of the diagnostics, so I could have the user and the teacher sort of side of things. So that was that opportunity. And the other couple of things is the breadth of organisations that we work with and for is great. So whilst we might have, a small product window, our breadth of experience and opportunity to influence is really great. So that was also attractive, to be able to get that diversity and those sorts of things. And also I was working at the time as an individual consultant in my own business, which I didn't particularly enjoy. It wasn't bringing out my best self. So to be consulting with the framework of a broader organisation around it was certainly advantageous. So that's sort of why I joined. And I was initially in Melbourne, but now I'm based here in Brisbane. And what do I enjoy about it is the diversity and really that opportunity to work at a variety of levels. And fair and honest about it, I really enjoy the organisational work the most because it's probably been my background and I actually like working across bigger teams than just at an individual level. But you can work both concurrently. But just seeing the difference that can happen and the change that can occur from sometimes stuff that, that's not difficult. And we were chatting a bit about this prior to joining on screen, is that sometimes, and even with our diagnostics, the language can be a bit clunky and academic, and you go, oh, constructive, what's that about? Aggressive, defensive, what? So that's why people call it green, red and blue, right? Which is great. Whatever works. What's that round thing? Whatever. But the key, I think, is really about how do you make it simple and practical for people. And so one of the things that I think I bring particularly now into organisations is having sat in the organisation and then now consulting into them, I get it. So when someone says, oh, that guy does da-da-da-da-da, and you go, yeah, well, that's this style playing out. So being able to join the two together and to just go, well, how do we improve rewards? Well, reward is about praise. So just say thanks to people genuinely or acknowledge their good work genuinely and regularly. You don't need to give everyone a coffee club voucher. You just need to say, hey, thanks. I really appreciate the work that you do. And mean it. It's not just the day-to-day, but it could also be just appreciate your day-to-day work. Or those, you do a great job here and I'd like it if you did a bit more. great, in a genuine way, and supporting people. So that's probably the bit that I love the best, and then you go back, I've got a client that I've been working on and off with for about 7 years now, and I don't hear anything for a while, and then they come back and I just go, oh, it's so great to have you back. Just top up the tank a little bit each time.
Yeah. Oh,
Look at it.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So if someone listening now can't wait until the summit, how do they get in contact with you? What's the best way for them
Oh,
to?
yeah. Well, with me personally, it's always a bit of a challenge, but probably my LinkedIn profile, whilst it's a little out of date, is probably the easiest way to connect rather than filling up my mailbox with emails. But that's always one too. And if anyone's looking at this video and it's not edited out, my email address is on the bottom of the screen. But if you are interested in our products, in our diagnostics, and a bit more about what we do, human-synergistics.com.au is our website, and there's a lot of information in our product there. If that you go, oh, that looks really interesting, but how does it work, or how does it play out at a local level? We also have a range of podcasts that are actually just a bit like this, Nicole, us consultants talking about our tools, our diagnostics, the application of those things, and that's Culture Bites, and that's on all sort of podcasts streaming things. So that's an opportunity just to hear us talking about how tools play out or particular client styles. That we have also done one on there a couple of years ago, and I'll get Don to bump it up the list again, around particularly relevant for this summit is how the psychosocial factors in the code of practice that has been brought out aligns with one of our diagnostic tools, and how you can measure it, and just to get the language and the simplicity there. So that's in the Culture Bites podcast as well.
Fantastic. And I'll actually link those in your digital profile in the Summit platform as well, so that people, when they get access to and purchase a ticket, can see that easily as well. But on that, can you give us a little teaser as to what you're chatting about at the summit?
Yeah, so I'm going to chat a little bit about organisational culture, which is, everyone talks about it, but it's hard to describe. People don't know what it is. How do we define it? It's basically a behavioural phenomenon that drives how we do stuff at work, and how the culture can help us and how it can get in the way. And what we also know is that some of the things that get in the way can be systems and processes. It can also be human behaviours. So how we make decisions, those sorts of things can flow into it. But talking about culture in the lens of, particularly around your psychosocial components, given that's what the theme of the summit's about, and there is an alignment between how we measure that and what they are. But also the other piece that's key to culture is leadership. Because leaders drive culture, culture influences leadership, and they both influence performance. So how do the role that the leaders play in both of those things, and how we can identify the traits and skills of leaders that will help and which will hinder, outside of personality, but more so in their behavioural styles. So a bit of that link between culture, leadership, performance, and then in terms of the psychosocial factors and the impact that they can have on culture in both, well, it's rare that it happens in a good way, but how to minimise them, and also how you can measure them. Using our tool, because that's what we do, but that's not, like, you don't have to use us. There's ways you can do stuff, but giving potentially some simple strategies, or just helping you think about, oh yeah, I see that all the time and I could do that to fix it, or I need to do that to fix it. So that's a bit of a teaser, as best I can make up. As I was just saying, it's not till October. It heaps of time to work out a plan, but I do have a 5-point dot point brief, so that's what we'll work on. But it's that sort of stuff. Yeah.
And that's the sort of stuff that organizations, HR and work health and safety really get stuck on sometimes, and really want to grow and improve. And the work that you're doing is so incredible. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for being involved. I'm really excited to meet you in person, and can't wait to meet you there at the summit.
That's great, Nicole. It's going to be a wonderful opportunity, and I look forward to hearing other speakers as well. I saw the list the other week, and it looks very exciting and a diverse range. So I think it's not just for your safety practitioners. I think HR, anyone actually who isn't interested in their growth and development, influencing people within their organisations, will find it really attractive to attend.
Fantastic. Thank you, Fiona.
No worries, Nicole. I look forward to seeing you in October.
You too.
Cheers.